Right, everyone, welcome back. So in this video, what we want to do is we want to start thinking about how we're going to import some more data into our movie database. So what I've got for us is I've scoured the web and I've looked through Kaggle. I think I mentioned in my previous video that on Kaggle, there's huge databases, and IMDb is one of the databases that they scrape from. This particular file was a CSV file, and I've just taken it and turned it into a JSON file. So the idea behind this is that we have a list, and then inside that list, every single item in the list is a dictionary, and that dictionary represents each individual film. So it's got details including stuff like title, poster, release year, and a whole bunch of other things. And to be fair, I kind of based the model that I created here in the models on that. Now I'm going to leave out certain things. So for example, here in the dictionaries for each film, they've got IMDb rating, they've got Metascore, and they've also got number of votes. Now we're not going to have that because in our database, we want our users who use the website to vote for the films, so whatever value it's going to be. And then in our next video, hopefully what we'll do is we'll get the average of what people have been voting for films and try to display the average as a collection. Right. So okay, without further ado, let's start this. So the first thing we're going to do, so we have this huge list of films, and what we want to do is import this list into our views file. Cool, right. So in my views file at the top here, I'm going to create a new function, and I want this function to be the one that loads films from the file. So we're going to say add films, and as always, we pass a request. And then we're going to say that we want to import the films, right, from the file. And Django can be a bit finicky with this. Sometimes it works in funny ways and sometimes it doesn't. One of the examples I found online hopefully will work for us. So we're going to import OS, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make a variable for the directory of the module, so the films directory. So I'll just borrow those two. In fact, I'll just borrow all three lines. We'll copy that. So we'll add that here. So import OS, and this will be the directory for our module. So our module here being the films directory, and the file that we're going to import is not that, but we'll take this here and we'll put that inside our function like that. And let's put that on a new line. In fact, our imports should go before. Cool. So now on our file path, we want to import this file here, which is called imdb_topfilms.json. So let's change that to imdb_topfilms.json. Hope that's correct. Cool. In fact, should we do that? Yes, that's fine. And then, so now we've got our file path. Now we want to use the file path. So we're going to say with open, in the usual way we do Python, we're going to say with open, and we're going to say file path, open file path, and we can open it to read. That's in my way. And then we're going to say, encoding equals UTF-8, and I think so. We want to say, oh no, we'll say as file, and then we'll say so data equals, right, so we're going to say file dot read lines. So that should be our file opened up. Now if that doesn't work, what we'll do is we'll do a try and accept function, so trial and accept method, and we'll load the data from my GitHub repository if that doesn't work, but that should be fine. Okay. So in fact, we'll test it out now. What we'll do is we'll say print, and we'll say print data. Now, by doing this, yeah, as you can see, I'm not going to return anything from this function. I'm just going to print data. So the screen won't come out with anything, but here in the terminal, I should get a response. So if I save that, then if I go to urls.py, we've got to create a path, a URL path. So we'll say that, and we'll say add films, and that will be add films as well, and we'll say name, same thing, films. Now this doesn't, it is why it, because it doesn't know that that function exists yet, because we have to import it in the same way that we imported homepage and film detail. So now I've done that, that's turned yellow, and that's turned yellow as well. So that means it's found it. If we save it and run it, like I said, we're not going to get a response. Let's see if that works anyway. So we'll now see if our, oops, not that one. We'll now see if we're able to see the film. Add films, didn't return. Yes, so it says it didn't return a HTTP response. It says none instead. And if we go back to Django or back to VS Code, that's fine. I didn't return a response. But if I scroll up, now what you can see, if I just do this for a second, now you can see that big JSON file is opened up and all the data of all the films is loaded. So that means that that's fine. And it means that it's reading our JSON file. So now instead of printing it, we want to start doing something with that data. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start creating objects that we're going to add into our models. So I made a small mistake, and that is that the data, because it's a JSON file, we're not going to read it as just a normal file. Okay, because it's JSON data, it's a JavaScript object notation. We're going to also, we're also going to import JSON. And then what we're going to do is we're not going to use the read lines file function. We're going to say JSON.load, and what we'll do is we'll load F. So now what we have is we have our data loaded up in dictionary format. So that means for every row of data, we'll be able to treat it like a dictionary. So for example, if we're looking at each item here, if I want to search for series title, then it's just going to give me just a title. So now I'm going to be able to treat it like a dictionary. So next then, what we want to do is we want to start creating an object and inserting those objects into our database. So we'll create an object by saying obj, we'll just create a variable for it. And we've already imported the film class. Okay, this is our blueprint for how to create a film. So we're going to say film.objects, which I can spell. And we want to use a function called update or create. So what this does is this will either create an object or it will update one if it already exists. And the way we want to do it is we want to have exactly the same variable names as we have here, because this is the data that we need to input. So we're going to take this, I'm just going to paste it into my views file in between here. And I'm going to get rid of, let's nest that correctly. I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff here. That's just for our model. But we want to start taking the data from, let me speed this up. Right, so we're going to take our data from the film object. From the film file. So, oh, I've made a mistake there actually. Yeah, so what I should do, because I'm going to iterate over the actual list now. So I'm going to say for film in data. For film in data. So like we said, it's going to iterate over our list here. It's going to iterate over our list, and each item in the list is going to be our dictionary of a film. Okay, so we're going to refer to it as for film in data, which is where this now comes in as nested inside. We want to say film title is equal to film the film object, and we want to refer to, I believe it was series title. So we'll take that and we'll stick that there. So now series title and the comma behind it. We're just going to take all the data from the dictionary, and I'm just going to speed this up. I'm going to do this very quickly. Okay, so that should be everything imported. And what I want to do is I want to return a HTTP response to tell me how many items has been imported once it runs this function. So at the top here, let's create a variable called number added equals 0. And here, let's write a message to ourselves. So first of all, let's import HTTP response. And we're just going to say first of all, we'll create a message. So we'll say message is equal to just say added number added. So we'll say added films to the database. So that will give us a message, and then we'll use that to create our HTTP response. So we'll return HTTP response, and we'll add our message to the response along with a content type, content underscore type equals, and that will be text / plain. Okay, so now that's done, let's save this file and let's try and run it and see if we get a response. We should get an error, but at least what we can see is, oh no, one second, there's something missing here. So every time after this is run, every time this function is run, we want the number added to plus equals 1, and I believe then that doesn't need to be nested, that should be here. Okay, so let's save that again. Let's see what happens. We'll probably get an error. Let's open up this. Okay, so now if we add films, let's run that function again. Right, it's telling us that 1994 value has an invalid date format. So the date format should be in year in 4 digits, month, and then day. So let's make a change to that. So the data that comes in, if we look here, we know from looking at the JSON file that the dates are just a string of just the year, but we also need to add the month and the day. So where we have released and we've got released year, what we'll do is we'll turn that into a string by doing that. Let's add an F string. And in fact, the comma should be on the outside of that. Let's turn that. Let's put that in curly brackets. And then we'll just say add 01 for the month and 01 for the day. So everything's going to be released on January the 1st, but that's fine because in our database, we're only ever looking at adding just the year. So, and that should be single quotes. Okay, so if we save that, let's see if we get another error. So if we run that, do we clear that error up? We do clear that error up, and now we have another problem. It says string object has no attribute days. It's telling us that this is on views on line 15, so it's where we're importing our it's where we're trying to add our object. Line 15, that's that. And we can get a better clue if we look here possibly. Oh, right. And this is to do with duration. So what it's referring to here is in our models, we have a duration field, okay? And the duration is not inputting correctly. So the duration should just be a number. So it should be the number of minutes, I believe. And if we look at our data that's been input, we can see that it's not just the minutes, it's also got a space, so it's got characters that will say min as well. So this is interesting because we might have a film with only 2 digits, so it might be 90 minutes long. In this case, some films are going to be 200, some minutes are going to be 142 like this. So we don't know how many, we don't know where we need to start. We can't cut from the front. We'll have to take away from the back. So we've got 4 characters here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we'll do is we'll work backwards and we'll test this out. So let's delete this for a moment. Let's not delete, sorry. We'll comment this out for just a moment. And what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and work out the runtime and see if we can just extract just the minutes itself. Let's say print, and this will print it for every single object now. So we want to say print film runtime, and in fact, let's put that into a string. Oops, put that into a string like that. Put an F in front of it. And then what we want to do, once again, let's make that single quotes. Okay, let's create a new variable here. Let's call it dur for duration. And we'll say that is equal to this here. So we'll take our dictionary data, we'll stick that there. And then what we'll do, because that will be a string. So now we'll say dur. I won't need that. I'll just say dur, and we'll say that we want to take from, I think we can say from 0 to -5, and let's see what comes up for our minutes. So we go back, hopefully this is reloaded, and we'll open up our page again, and when we run it again, so this is now told us that it's added 685 films. It hasn't, because we commented out a bit about adding an object, but it's told us there's 625 objects that it's just iterated over. And if we look here, it can tell me that for every single film, it's not quite right. So if I look at the last film, actually, it makes it a bit easier. So the last film says 8. If I go to here and I open up, let's scroll down to the last film. The last film is 87 minutes. So what it's doing is it's taking away 1 digit too much. So let's change that to -4. And let's run that again. And now if we hit enter and go back again, I can now see that. So 87, 78, 157. As long as these 3 correspond to the last 3 films in my JSON film, then I know what my minutes are now correct. So I can say it was 87, 78 is correct, and the last one was 157. There we go. So that's fine. So now our minutes are going to be imported correctly, I hope. And then we can now take that data. So I no longer need to print. I can get rid of that. And we can uncomment this here. Okay. And then what we can do is, where it says duration, we'll just call this. We'll use that function that we just, the variable we just created. Okay. So now hopefully if we save that and run it again, now we're going to see if we can add all those films to our database if there's no more errors. So we'll go back to here and we'll run this one more time. This might take a bit longer this time. Oh no, still got an error. Okay, so the error here is it seems like I have to pass that data into Django as a time object or a time delta. So what we can do then is we are going to let's import from datetime. So from the top here, we'll say date time. We'll import delta. I believe that's all I need. Sorry, time delta. And then what we'll do is we'll pass this data that we have as dur. What we'll do is we'll create another variable and we'll call it fdur. So in other words, formatted duration. And we will pass that through as formatted data. So So rather than it just being a string, we're going to say time delta, and we will pass that as minutes. So we're letting Python know that what we're passing through is minutes, and it has to be passed as an integer. And the integer is from the string. So it's going to take that string, it's going to convert it to an integer, and it'll pass that through our time delta. And then what we'll do is we will try to do this. So we'll say every film will now have its minutes passed through as an integer, as a time format. Let's try that one more time. Hopefully this is our last fix, and we can say all our films are imported. Ooh, okay, so one more. What's it now saying? Invalid literal for int with base 142 mins. So from the film, take the runtime. Oh, okay. It's still passing through the minutes. Did I not change that? I'm very sure I changed that. So our runtime. Right. Okay. So here. So we'll take our runtime here. Let's put that into a. Let's put that into a string. My bad. Okay. Oh, and that should be curly brackets. Okay. I mean, that's already a string. Do I need to do that? No, I don't. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. Yep. Sorry. So, my bad. So here where we pass in the function, here's where we're going to redo what we did before. Where did that go? Did I delete that by accident? I must have deleted it without thinking. So this time that was going to be, I believe it was a -4. So from a 0 to -4, that was our problem now, because it's still passing through the string minutes. It couldn't turn that into an integer. Right. What's this? 5th time? 6th time lucky? Let's give that a go. No error. And it's spinning, it's taking its time, which means that one by one it's adding those 600 films to our database. In a second, then we should get a HTTP response, and that should tell us eventually that 600 or so items have been added. Okay, now it's done. It said it's added 685 films, and here's how we're going to find out. We're going to go back to our Django admin page, and if you remember, the films thing was the last. Well, we've opened the films tab. If I refresh that, we should have now a whole bunch of films. Cool. So if I go to, for example, Muppet Movie, the data's all in there. Genres, I'm gonna have to find a way to split those genres up, but we'll see. Now if we go to view site, okay then. All right, so we've got loads of films. I can see that the data I've got from this Kaggle hasn't really got the best images. It's not the most, I can see there's 1 or 2 missing as well, but they're not the most high definition. But you know what, that will do for now. And if we click on any one of those films, right, the picture's really small. We'll live with, that's why the thing is so bad, the resolution, but that's fine. Okay, and then what we've got here is we've got crime and drama. So some of our films are going to have more than one, and we might have to look into a way of splitting by comma and creating more than one tablet here. So cool. You know what? I think this is long enough for this video. So in this video, what we've done is we have imported a whole bunch of films from a JSON file. If I go back to the home page, the next thing I want to do is look, this is huge. Every time this page loads, it's going to be huge. There's now, what's that, 700 or so films? Let's go back here. Go back one more time. This should tell us at the bottom. 691 films altogether. So in our next video then, we're going to introduce pagination or pagination. See you then.